Hello and welcome to the Week 6 Megapod for TheLines.com. Matt Brown, Stephen Andress, and Adam Candee here to break down every single one of the games on the slate. Hopefully, for me, a better week than last week. I got destroyed. This is a transparent show. Listen, if we're going to do some victory laps when we have good weeks, I'm going to let you know when we have bad weeks. Horrible week for me last week. Thank God Cincinnati did get the cover to kind of ease the burden just a little bit, but it was a rough one for me. What about you, Stephen?
Yeah, about 500 overall, but the teaser on the Packers, like, it's never fun when there's a London game and you're like way behind before like noon Eastern time. That really stunk. But not a great week. The teasers have been awful for me this year after I had an amazing teaser year last year, but hey, in the Beat the Lines contest, I'm in third place and a point behind, hitting like almost 70%. So maybe I should just not bet teasers anymore, like I swore off props.
You should. Hey, listen, maybe you should be in the. If you were in one of the contests right now, you would be rocking and rolling. Adam, week as a whole for you.
Not bad, and largely because of props. Frankly, my props year has been fairly solid thus far. Overall, though, I was looking at my teaser legs because I was curious, since we have a few of those going again this week. And, we'll talk more about this as we go on, but definitely my tease ups looking better than my tease downs. And I think that goes to speak to what the relative strength of the middle of the pack and the lower part of the NFL is this year.
My worst single NFL week in 7 years was this past week. And the reason I bring that up is because one of the things that you said right there, Adam, too, is just a quick thing that we'll harp on, a few different times a year. You got to be keeping records. You've got to be keeping a spreadsheet. You got to know what you're good at. You got to know what you're bad at. You got to know what you should spend more time working on if you really want to get better at, that sport or that aspect of that sport. And you got to know what to spend less time at and spend less dollars doing as well. And so stuff that has certainly helped me over the years. And as Adam just mentioned, he's certainly noticed a little bit of a trend from his betting from the teaser side of things. For me, this year, teasers have been absolutely horrible as well. So I don't know if it's, I don't know if it's just a change in the way that the NFL's played so far this season. We know it's been a pretty big shift from a total standpoint, from an underdog standpoint, different things like that. So maybe we will identify something we can pass along to you guys here in the next couple of weeks as well.
We've seen it in Survivor, right? Big favorites going down, and that's going to correlate to teasers not doing well if you have favorites teasing down that are just losing outright.
So let's kick things off here. San Francisco 49ers at the Atlanta Falcons. As we sit right now, 5.5 in favor of the 49ers on the road at the Falcons. We know the 49ers did stay out east, as they always do. At the Greenbrier is where the 49ers were. They were at the Greenbrier over there for the week. 44.5 is your total in this one. Trending towards Nick Bosa not playing for the 49ers this week, and so that's not great news. That being said, this Falcons team, I think in all of our power ratings, find themselves in the bottom 5, bottom 6, something like that. And 49ers probably find themselves inside the top 5 or 6. So a massive difference there when it all comes down to it. Steven, what are we looking at here from your end? It is your 49ers squad.
It is, and I'm betting against them this week, believe it or not. I have a bet on the Falcons at plus 5.5, and it really is because the 49ers injury report is starting to pile up again. And we've seen this throughout the entire Kyle Shanahan era. He has been top 10 of most injured rosters all 5 years of the regime. Can't wait to talk to Will Carroll about this on Friday on the Lines Injury Podcast to see if he has any insight as to why this keeps happening for San Francisco. But this week in particular, you mentioned Nick Bosa. It's the entire defensive line, the entire starting defensive line. Arik Armstead, Javon Kinlaw, all did not practice back-to-back days, Wednesday and Thursday. Ebukam did come back from a DNP on Wednesday to be limited, but it's an Achilles, and they're going to be careful when it comes to an Achilles. And even if he's out there, who knows if he's 100%. So the entire front unit that has been dominant at getting pressure without blitzing is compromised for this game. On top of that, safety Jimmy Ward is out. Emmanuel Mosley is out for the year. And when he was not available last year for the 49ers, their pass defense was very susceptible. It became a weak link in the defense that passing offenses and good receivers were able to take advantage of. Their backup corner, Diamador Lenore, 93rd out of 104 in coverage grade among corners, 101 passer rating allowed when targeted. And their backup DB, Tarvarius Moore, is also limited with a hamstring. So more than half of the starting defense, some of their depth is compromised in this game. And the Falcons' offensive line, despite the quarterback play being below average, is number 3 in pass block win rate, believe it or not. And Kyle Pitts is back to full practice as well. I think going on the road across the country for a second straight week, I know they stayed at the Greenbrier, lived themselves up, had a nice little practice in the Eastern time zone, but I thought 5.5 here on the road was too much considering all of the injury concerns on defense.
Adam, look, we saw what we thought was going to be a completely decimated Bills defense, but they are so well coached and so well schemed that the injuries, I'm not going to say didn't matter, but certainly did not affect near as much as I think a lot of us thought it would with this Bills squad. Do you think that could be the case for the 49ers? They're just so well coached and they can be schemed up so well that against a Falcons team that again is they're fine, but they're certainly nothing that we're thinking is going to be world beaters this year or anything. Do you think it could be enough to get it done here?
I see the point that you're coming up with, Matt, and I understand because the injuries are similar in Buffalo to where they are in San Francisco, right? Where you have injuries at every level of the defense. What I think Steven's pointing to with that pass rush not being able to get home with 4 would really worry me, though, because Buffalo was still able to do that with Von Miller playing at old Von Miller levels here. So my play in this game actually has nothing to do with side. I love the total that I got. I looked at it early in the week. It was at 42. I'm seeing mostly 44.5 now. I played over 42 early in the week. The respect for the San Francisco defense is understandable. That being said, last week I told you guys I liked over in San Francisco, Carolina, and it didn't take much from Carolina's side to get there. So if you're worried about the Atlanta offense, I'm going to point to the other side of what they're doing. As Steven mentioned, the pass block win rate. And I think there's a tendency to look at that rushing offense and say, well, they don't have Cordero Patterson. And Cordero Patterson was great before getting hurt, 6 yards per carry. But if you look at Caleb Huntley and Tyler Algier, they're averaging roughly 5 yards a carry per piece. If you look at yards after contact, their numbers are identical to Cordero Patterson. It goes to say that something in this offense, even though it's not necessarily the offensive line, something in the scheme is working for them. I took them last week, plus 10.5. It was not the friendliest cover that I've ever had. That definitely was a game that made me think about getting out at multiple points, but ultimately, I think this Atlanta offense is going to be able to do its part, and I think we're seeing that the San Francisco offense is beginning to click a little bit with George Kittle having been back for a couple of weeks, with Jeff Wilson playing the role of every running back succeeds in the Kyle Shanahan system. So over 42 is where I landed. It's over 44.5 at this point. I don't love the value as much, but I think it's the way you would go if you're planning on playing this.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that if anything, it'd be a total look for me in this one as well. You do have two pretty, well, let's put it this way. Falcons have been an efficient offense. The 49ers you think are going to get better. I mean, it's the full on now Jimmy G has basically had his air quote preseason, so he's had the games to kind of get worked into the offense. And as you mentioned, Kittle coming off the groin injury should work into the offense a little bit better. And then if we believe that these, at least somewhat, we believe that these injuries are going to affect this defense, then that should allow Atlanta to put points on the board as well. And we know Atlanta's defense, 27th DVOA, 20th according to Pro Football Focus, and their pressure rate, Jimmy G, we know, not the greatest under pressure. They're dead last in the NFL in pressure rate, so he shouldn't have to worry about that much either. So, yes, I think that the total is the look as well. I do like that angle in this one, but outside of that, going to be all I get in on that one. So let's take a look here at New England Patriots and the Cleveland Browns. Right now, we have the Browns as 2.5-point home favorites over the Patriots, a total of 43.5. Adam, we take a look at this one. We know we're going to get another week of Bailey Zappi. They can sit there and dangle the carrot of Mac Jones getting out to practice and stuff like that. It's not going to do it, dude. The high ankle sprain is a 4-week injury. We know that. It's been a 4-week injury for basically as long as you and any of us have been following the NFL. And so it's going to be Zappi. And so it's the Patriots catching 2.5 points on the road against the Browns. And look, the total I think seems fairly appropriate at 43. We know pretty much exactly what both of these teams want to do to each other, which is just run the ball down each other's throats. You would say, well, then isn't the total too high? But not if you run the ball very, very efficiently, it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, like the total can get over even if if you're running the ball at 7-8 yards a clip, which maybe these teams are going to do considering what we've got going on here. So what do you think about this one?
This again is a total game for me, Matt. Played it early in the week at 42 over 43. Again, we're into some key numbers here with the lower totals in the NFL. And since Matt and I are both talking about totals here in the first couple of games, I'll point out the fact that there are 13 games this week. 11 of them land between 41 and 45.5. You only have 2 games that are up in the 50s. And that's why, even though I was playing some unders early in the year, I have a pair of overs here. Let me give you a number on the Cleveland offense that I found stunning, and I'll give proper credit to PFF for this one. The Cleveland offense, in terms of rush EPA, its rush EPA is better than the pass EPA of 26 NFL teams. That's how efficient they've been in terms of running the football. The problem for Cleveland has been that other teams are just as efficient running the ball against them. They are 30th against in rush DVOA. And so this Cleveland team has just not been able to do the job on the defensive side of the ball thus far this year. It's why I like looking at the over, because look at what New England has done regularly here, right? You know they want to run the ball, but look at their last few games. They went against a bad rush defense in Green Bay, and they nearly won that game. Then they come back and they're able to run the ball against Detroit, and they wrecked Detroit. And then you look at Cleveland, and I think you're in a similar situation to what you saw last week, where Austin Eckler and company ran all over them in a game with the Chargers. And of course, they were able to run the ball themselves. So I'm on the over. If I were to play a side, I'd be on Cleveland here, but I'm not going to get involved in side and total in the same game. I'm going to stick with the early investment that I have in the over.
Yeah, Steven, if we take a look here, we're looking at a couple of rush defenses that grade out depending on which advanced metric you want to look at, but definitely in the bottom third of the league, if not the bottom 10% of the league. And it is, a credibly effective rush offense for both of these teams as well. I mean, I know a lot of people tend to think if there is 2 teams that all they want to do is run the ball, there's no way you can play an over. But again, if you're getting 5-6 yards a clip, it doesn't really matter. You're being super efficient in moving the ball. That also being said, what it doesn't do is allow for much of a blowout potential, right? Because if there's not going to be a ton of explosive plays, and there's not going to be a ton of the ball's not going to be in the air a ton for there to be picks or strip sacks or any of the things like that where we see where the turnovers come most often, then it can also lead to games playing a little bit closer, which is how you are going about this one.
For sure. It sets up for a nice teaser leg, in my opinion. Low total, teasing the Patriots up through the 3, through the 7. So got them at 8.5 as we sit here now on Friday morning, East Coast time. And I think it's your quintessential teaser leg. I love the matchup there. We talk about how good Nick Chubb has been this year. Well, in terms of yards after contact per rush, Ramondre Stevenson is just as good as Nick Chubb. 4.24 yards after contact per rush. Nick Chubb, 4.23. Ramondre Stevenson, to me, is an emerging star among the running backs in the National Football League. I think he's that good. And I think this is the perfect matchup against a bottom-of-the-barrel rush defense, so sets up nicely there. And God help me, get the clown mask ready. I said I would not bet any more props for the rest of the season, and I bet a prop. I got plus money on Ramondre Stevenson to score a touchdown in this game. I'm not sure why it was plus money. I guess they were still on the fence of whether or not Damian Harris would play, but I'd be shocked if he plays with this hamstring injury. So to see plus money on a Stevenson touchdown in this matchup was very surprising to me, so I took it.
Yeah, I mean, look, this was a rare instance where Belichick, once Harris went down, Stevenson became the every down back, right? So there was, as far as snap percentage played for Ramondre Stevenson in week 5, he ended up playing 90% of the snaps, which is, kind of unheard of in a Belichick offense. And so he didn't go to the third string guy and split the carries. He feels comfortable splitting them between Stevenson and Harris, but not between Stevenson and whoever else is next up on the line. Pierre Strong, I think, or JJ Taylor, or something like that, whoever it might be.
Yeah, I mean, they've lost everybody else. James White retired. Ty Montgomery went on IR. So it's almost by necessity that he's just making Stevenson the bell cow. Is certainly not what he likes to do typically, but it's almost by necessity at this point.
Yeah, so I mean, look, will one of those guys siphon off a few carries in this game? Probably, but I still imagine Stevenson's going to be in that 80 to 85% snap count range. And if that's the case, then I think that your look here is pretty good. It's funny because I don't have a play on this one, but I lean the way both of you lean. If I was playing this straight up, I would play Cleveland. If I was playing a teaser, I would play New England. I think this game sets up perfectly for that. I mean, again, when you run the ball as much as these teams do, you can be highly efficient while also not being able to blow the other team out just because of the nature of the way that you're playing. If we look at as far as percentage of plays that New England passes, they are 26th in the NFL towards the bottom. You know who's below them? The Cleveland Browns, 28th in the NFL as far as percentage of pass plays for them. So it is, it's kind of set up pretty cut and dry, at least in my opinion. Offenses should be able to move the ball, should be a fairly close game. And with that, we will see, I think, both of y'all's kind of sides or leans here in the same game getting home. All right, so let's talk a fairly interesting game here, in my personal opinion, in the Jets and the Packers, because this thing is sitting 7.5 in favor of the Packers. 45 is the total. I think we are starting to see two teams trending in opposite directions, Stephen. I think we are looking at a Jets team that seems to be getting at least a little bit better. And if anything, I think you would say the Packers are neutral, certainly not on the upswing. And if anything, maybe on the downswing. I've seen nothing from this team to give me hope that they're going to immediately turn it around. And so this one I just kept looking at long and hard and have not been able to pull the trigger and get it in the account yet. But man, does getting the hook with the Jets look enticing. Talk me off of it.
No, I bet it. I'm on Jets plus 7.5. Our lead writer, Eli Hershkovich, bet it as well. You can read his reasons why on the site. I think we have to give credit to Zach Wilson where it's due here. We last week said we're going to make him beat us. We're going to make him prove it first. And I was curious to dig into the numbers. I know he was facing a third-string quarterback, but he was facing not the quarterback. He's facing the Dolphins defense that was also banged up. But this was better Zach Wilson than what we saw for the majority of his rookie season. He was above average in EPA and success rate metrics among all quarterbacks last week. He was above average in completion percentage over expectation. So I think we need to at least consider the fact that this is a quarterback going into his second year that had his preseason cut off, that didn't get to play for the first month of the season, and now is finally getting full practices again. And he's got a bevy of weapons around him. And the Jets offense in this game against the Packers should control the line of scrimmage. They are 12th in run block win rate. Green Bay is 22nd in run stop win rate. PFF and Football Outsiders has the Green Bay defense bottom 5 against the run. This is a bottom 5 in rush EPA defense and dead last in rush success rate allowed. We've seen multiple times this year the Packers defense not be able to stop the run against the likes of David Montgomery and Saquon Barkley. So I think Breece Hall is in for a pretty good spot here with a good offensive line against a struggling rush D. And then Zach Wilson can just, frankly, simply distribute the ball to a core of wide receivers that I think are pretty good. Garrett Wilson's already a top 22 wide receiver by PFF grade a few games into his rookie season. Arrows pointing up for him. Corey Davis has proven that he can make big plays in this league still. And then Elijah Moore hasn't even gotten going, and the reputation on him is an elite route runner, but they just haven't utilized him as much. So I think this is an interesting spot for the dog. It wouldn't shock me, honestly, if the Jets win this game outright. I think Aaron Rodgers being 17th in dropback EPA. Like Eli dug into the numbers, like he's never been this low in drop back EPA. Like even when he's had other struggling years by his standards, he's never been this low in drop back EPA. So I think the offensive line for the Packers being below average in blocking win rate is affecting him. I think he's obviously missing Devontae Adams. And then you have a Jets defense that's the 4th highest pressure rate at the 4th lowest blitz rate. Like Robert Saleh's got himself a little mini Niners defense going here with the Jets through the first month or so of the season. So if you look at the numbers, I'm not sure why the Packers are 7.5 here.
Yeah, Adam, I look at this one, and I mean, one of the things that was interesting to me is since they got Zach Wilson back, the Jets' offensive EPA has been better than the Packers' EPA through the first 5 weeks with Aaron Rodgers. Like, I mean, this offense has actually been better from an expected points added aspect than the Packers have with Aaron Rodgers. And then I think one of the deals that is kind of at least being a little bit overlooked when I've heard people talk about this game is just the fact that, look, we thought this Green Bay defense, we thought the offense might struggle just a little bit as he works in to like try to get, familiar with these rookies and stuff. Christian Watkins, by the way, still can't like get out at practice. So they're not going to get any chemistry because he can't practice in full. So your de facto number one becomes Randall Cobb at 37 years old or whatever it is. And so if you're throwing to dust, I mean, it's going to be tough to move the ball fairly often, but I think we thought that was at least a possibility. What we didn't think was a possibility was this defense being as average or below average as it has been through the first 5 weeks of the season. And I don't see a whole lot of things here that lead me to believe that this is an aberration or that this is going to turn around. I mean, when you really dig in, it's like they're just not doing a lot of stuff very well, specifically on early downs, allowing teams to move the ball on early downs and get in second and third and short. And like that is very tough at that point for a defense to have a lot of success. And so I kind of look at this and wonder if the market is kind of just still valuing Aaron Rodgers as Aaron Rodgers, the god of in football or whatever, and looking at Zach Wilson as still this kind of like scrub, whereas maybe there should be an adjustment both directions.
First of all, Dust would like a word with you. Currently, Dust is 12th in PFF yards per route run. Dust has an 85 PFF grade. Now, Dust would also probably be matched up with Sauce Gardner pretty regularly this week. So I'm not sure that Randall Cobb is a guy that I want to base my evaluation on. But to your point, Matt, how are we going to evaluate Zach Wilson? Well, Zach Wilson by PFF grade is 11th since coming back, which is, I guess, a lot better than we would have expected from a guy who was bottom 5 all of last year. That being said, getting to betting the Jets 7.5 on the road requires me to trust that. I don't trust that. I don't. And I can't get to the point of placing the wager. Now, my theme this week is going to have a lot to do with just because your numbers say it doesn't mean you have to do it. My numbers would say bet Green Bay. I'm not betting Green Bay, just to make clear. This is not a matter of confidence in Green Bay. My evaluation of this comes down to I trust the fact that the market is saying they're leaning toward the Jets. I trust everything you guys are talking about here right now. So this game is a pass for me.
Can I ask Adam a quick question real quick on that? Because I think this is interesting for novice bettors as well. Adam, you mentioned your numbers. How did you deal with the Jets, considering that Flacco was the quarterback for the first few games and now you have Wilson? How did you deal with that situation?
So I didn't actually change it a lot because they let Flacco throw the ball quite a bit. And frankly, allowing Flacco to throw the ball wasn't the worst for them in terms of how they performed early in the year. Now, yes, there is a difference between those two quarterbacks in terms of power rating, and if you want to talk about dealing with that situation directly, but for me, it's not more than a point between Joe Flacco and Zach Wilson, at least until Zach Wilson puts a little bit more in front of us in terms of what he's able to do. So I actually didn't change my handicap on the Jets that much with Zach Wilson coming back.
If you take a look, guys, it's actually fairly shocking. Like, out of a clean pocket, Zach Wilson has been elite, like elite. And so we know that Green Bay, for all their defensive deficiencies, they blitz a ton, right? So, I mean, are those blitzes going to get home and disrupt, the pocket for Wilson? Because if that's the case, he does drop off pretty significantly when pressured, right? And so I think that really is going to be the key here for Green Bay. If they can pressure Wilson, then I think, they probably can scrap out a win here. If they don't get pressure on him, I think he's going to be able to move the ball in this defense, who's been really, really vulnerable so far this year. And one last little thing is we've talked about teasers and how teasers have kind of bit us this year. Look, this falls in that, hey, home team down to 1.5 thing. Never even considered it this week. I mean, literally never even considered it this week because of all the, touchdown favorites we've had over the last, few weeks or whatever. I feel like Green Bay is kind of ripe to get picked off here. And so didn't ever consider a 7.5 down to 1.5. I don't know about you guys.
No, never even. I saw it. It fit the mold. Didn't even think about it.
Yeah.
Green Bay is a work in progress still. Like, we can talk about priors all we want with Aaron Rodgers, et cetera. They're a work in progress still. They got to show it. If they could lose to Saquon Barkley and the Giants, and they could have trouble with Bailey Zappi and the Patriots, they can absolutely have trouble with this Jets team as currently constructed.
Adam, did it even get kind of any second thought from you this week? Because I know a lot of people are going to look at that and say, wait, I can get the Packers down to 1.5 against the Jets.
It didn't. And I know you guys were both on Green Bay in London in the teaser situation last week against the Giants, and I didn't join you in that because I didn't think that.
Smart man.
Well, you're going to find out later when we talk about another team that you guys like that I'm not that smart. But I just decided that I did not trust the efficiency of Green Bay's offense, especially while they continue to deal with offensive line injuries. It's amazing to me that David Bakhtiari can't get on the field healthy, and Elton Jenkins is also questionable this weekend.
Yeah, so for me, again, it's a Jets or pass, and I can't believe I'm saying that, but it is going to be a Jets or pass for me. Certainly going to be Jets in the contest for me. I do know that. Jacksonville Jaguars at the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are 2-point home favorites over the Jags, a total of 42. Now, Adam, one of the things we know about this one is that Jonathan Taylor did return to practice for the Colts. So everything trending in the right direction for him to be back out there for them. This is an interesting handicap for me because I do wonder how much psychology is going into the number in this, because I think everybody from a power rating standpoint last week had the Jags higher than the Colts. The Jags burn everybody last week. They knock everybody out of Survivor. They lose all your teaser legs. They lose your money line parlays. Like, every single way you had the Jags. And here we find them as 2-point dogs to a Colts team that literally had to kick 4 field goals. It was one of the worst games, obviously, we've all ever seen. We don't have to relive that. So I don't know. I had this. I thought the Jags would be a 1-point favorite, and but they're 2-point underdogs in this. So I have a pretty decent lean towards the Jags because I'm not going to completely wipe them off, everything that I've seen so far this season because of one bad game. But what say you?
Matt, I love the fact that you're talking about the recency bias of a team that just hurt you, right, with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I did not join in on that last week because Trevor Lawrence needs to show me a little bit more consistently before I'm going to get behind him as a 7-point home favorite against anyone. Now, again, the Jacksonville Jaguars are a better team than last year. How bad is Indianapolis? That's really the question here. The quarterback of Indianapolis, and we talked about this in the offseason, well, we're just going to keep replacing one veteran quarterback with another, right? We're just going to keep throwing in another Phillip Rivers type at the helm of Indianapolis, Carson Wentz, et cetera, et cetera. No, the quarterback of Indianapolis has taken a significant downgrade this year with Matt Ryan. He leads the National Football League in turnover-worthy plays with 12. He leads the National Football League in the worst way in big-time throws with only 1. 1 against 12 is a horrendous ratio for having any sort of pass offense, and that's how bad it's been trying to throw the ball for Indianapolis. So with no further ado, I have Jacksonville plus 8.5 in a teaser because I am perfectly willing to say that this Jacksonville team is not one score worse than Indianapolis, and it wasn't all that long ago, if we're going to talk about recency bias, that the Jags blew Indy off the field in Jacksonville.
I also have the Jags up at plus 8 in a teaser leg with a leg we'll talk about here a little bit later in the show. Steven, here's the thing. If you are nothing but a scoreboard looker, You saw that the Jags lost last week. If you watched the game or dug in, they absolutely dominated the Texans. They had over 200 yards more offense than they did. It came down to 2 plays. And listen, they were 2 horrific plays. You like to think that they don't show up again this week. The Trevor Lawrence interception when they got down into the red zone from the 7-yard line was one of the worst passes you'll ever see from a quarterback at the NFL level ever. I have no idea what he was doing. I have no idea what he was trying to do. Absolutely terrible. Trayvon Walker jumps offside, so gets 1 penalty as it was anyway, and then decides right in front of the referee to take the quarterback and sling him down hard to the ground, which turned a 3rd and 20. Yes, a 3rd and 20 into a 1st and 10 and completely iced the game at that point for the Texans. So again, it's like, yes, they lost on the scoreboard, but when you really kind of break the game down, the Jags, they dominated the game. And so I'm not ready to jump off the train quite yet, and certainly not ready to jump off the train against this Colts squad that has shown me quite literally nothing through the first 5 weeks of the season.
Me neither. I'm not jumping off the Jags in this matchup. I'm jumping off the Colts, and I will continue to jump off the Colts because functionally they cannot execute with this offensive line. It is a huge trenches mismatch. Adam, you talked about the quarterback, Matt Ryan. He's made some bad decisions. At least some of that is because he's got no time whatsoever. The Indy offensive line is awful to begin with. Now their center, Ryan Kelly, has a hip injury. Not sure if he's going to play or how effective he can be. With an offensive line that was already 31st in pass block win rate, 28th in run block win rate, you could put Walter frickin' Payton behind that offensive line. He's not going to run all that effectively. I don't care if Jonathan Taylor's back there. And the Jags front 7 is pretty darn good. 2nd in pass rush win rate, 6th in run stop win rate. Yes, the Colts didn't have Michael Pittman and they didn't have Alex Pierce in the first matchup here, and that's significant. And I think that's part of the reason why you see them holding here as a small favorite at home. But I'm not sure Matt Ryan's going to have any time to operate here. So as long as Trevor Lawrence can cut down on the mistakes, they should be able to compete again in this one. The Colts defense does rank above average overall in EPA and success rate, but it's thanks to its rushing defense. The liability they have on defense is what we all thought coming into the season. They are 27th in drop back success rate. So despite a negative CPOE for Trevor Lawrence, he is 14th and 6th among quarterbacks in EPA and success rate. So I look at that and I think Doug Peterson's working his magic, right? This to me feels like a similar situation with Kyle Shanahan and Jimmy Garoppolo, where he's putting him in a situation and scheming up open receivers and making it, as our senior writer Mo Nawara describes it, easy mode when you're playing Madden. Just hit the button, deliver it to your first read, and get some yardage. So I think mismatch in the trenches here for the Colts offense is going to be difficult again for them to move the ball. I tease the Jags up as well to +8, and I'm also going to include them in a small money line underdog parlay with another team that we're going to talk about a little bit later here.
Family game this week, family bet here on the pod, so we'll see how that all plays out. Boys, this was the first bet I put in my account, and I'm just kind of wondering what I'm missing here. Minnesota Vikings, Miami Dolphins. So as we said, I'm watching games on a Sunday. I'm taking notes. I'm writing down. Figure out what this opening line is going to be. If it's this or less than this, we're betting it no matter what, whatever. I wrote down, what is this Vikings-Dolphins line going to be after watching the quarterback situation for the Miami Dolphins, after watching Tyreek Hill kind of get nicked up, all the different stuff that's going on. Of course, the Dolphins defense that we referenced earlier in the podcast, not looking at all like the Dolphins defense that we thought heading into the season. And this thing hit at 3. I rushed to put it in the account. There was only one book in Vegas that even posted it. And it's only moved to 3.5 at a couple of the books out there. Now it is shade. The threes that are out there are shaded towards the 3.5. And so we might end up there when it's all said and done. 45.5 or 46 is the total. Stephen, when I thought for sure, whenever we found out Skylar Thompson was going to start, that this would blast through the 4. I thought 4.5 was going to end up being the number. I am incredibly wrong, apparently. What am I missing here?
I'm confused, and I'm wondering if the market is confused with what's going on with this new concussion protocol situation with the Dolphins, because we were told that Teddy Bridgewater did not in fact have a concussion despite being pulled from the game. Nevertheless, he's still in the concussion protocol this week and limited. but could still clear the protocol. But Mike McDaniel only has Skylar Thompson to take quarterback snaps in practice. So is there a chance Teddy Bridgewater could still start at quarterback, even though he's in the concussion protocol without it's mind. I have no idea what to think of this situation. I'm curious if the rest of the market kind of sees that as well, because if Skylar Thompson's the quarterback, I don't know why this should be 3. It doesn't make sense to me. It's almost, Adam, what do you think? Like, I feel like the market is still not 100% convinced that Teddy Bridgewater is not starting this game.
I think it's the other side, actually, guys. I don't know that this market is as convinced on Minnesota this year as it was last year. And ultimately, I'm with you. Matt, you texted me about this when that line was still up, and I got involved as well with Minnesota at 3. But this Minnesota team has had a penchant for making games closer than they should be. And so to trust them on the road as a 3-point favorite, I can understand why there's at least some hesitation in the market. I do get a little bit worried when I see just how many tickets are on Minnesota, just how much of the cash is on Minnesota, and the fact that this hasn't moved more than it has, because it might indicate that the books have some respected money on Miami. And again, Miami's been a team that the wise guys have liked throughout. But again, is it the same Miami? You have Teron Armstead questionable. You have Xavier Howard questionable. You have Raheem Mostert questionable, which actually is a move in the right direction. So, when we look at this Miami team, I'm with you guys in saying I don't know what's left. And when you saw Skylar Thompson out there for Miami, you didn't see them move the ball. When you saw the defense giving up 3 touchdowns to the Jets in the fourth quarter, you realize, oh God, this could get bad.
Yeah, guys, I just don't look. I don't get it. I understand. Minnesota's going to win ugly. Like, that's just the way that this team is going to be. But here's the difference between this year and last year: they're winning these games, right? Like, that's the difference. Like, if you want to know what the O'Connell difference maybe is for this team, is when these games were getting close last year, they were losing these games. Now these games are getting close and they're winning these games. They're on the right side of this that is going on. And look, like I said this on the pod last week, and I went ahead and did it. So I sprinkled a little Viking Super Bowl at 25-1 in my account, because if you take a look, fellas, if they get through Miami this week, they go on bye to get healthy, then come back out against Arizona and Washington, we could be looking at a Week 10 matchup against Buffalo with a 7-1 Vikings team, right? I mean, this team after the Buffalo game, you get Dallas, New England, the Jets, the Lions, the Colts, the Giants, and that is through Week 16. Then you get Green Bay in 17, and then the Bears in 18. It is not out of the realm of possibility that we are talking about a 12-5 or 13-3. Well, I guess it would be 13-4 Vikings team here. Like this team could be in the mix for the 1 seed in the NFC. And so I just listen. The schedule just is so soft moving forward outside of Buffalo and Dallas, if you want to consider Dallas, one of those teams that's up there. So I made the sprinkle, and I feel pretty good about it, actually.
All right. If you want to get in on side action at over 12.5, let me know.
Oh, okay. All right. 13. Well, yeah, you said it at 12.5.
Oh, of course I did, because that's the highest number you gave me.
Hey, listen, 11.5. You got yourself a dance partner. That's for sure. But its team's going to win ugly. I think they win this one. Probably win it ugly. But it's I don't know. Shocker to me. A 7th round rookie didn't really affect the line other than a half a point. Is what it's kind of looking like.
Yeah. To your point, Matt, I think there's maybe some credit to you guys for not having recency bias. I wonder if there is a little fatigue with the Vikings, because they've won 3 straight games, but they haven't covered the closing number in any of those. So maybe some people getting burned on them and not wanting to go back to the well on the road as a favorite. But if just checking in with the Vikings offense, 9th in EPA, 3rd in success rate. Kirk Cousins, 12th in dropback EPA, 4th in success rate. 17th in rush EPA, 4th in success rate. Very strong offense. They're doing what we expected them to do under Kevin O'Connell, if not being in the elite tier. And I'm with you on them. I bet Vikings Super Bowl futures before the start of the season at 40-1. I see no reason to back off of them with what appears to be a pretty wide open NFC. But for me, I just want to make sure that Skylar Thompson is actually the starting quarterback this week, with this weird Teddy Bridgewater situation that is very much unprecedented with the protocols. This is a new situation we haven't seen.
Cincinnati Bengals and the New Orleans Saints. This was the second ticket that went into my account. I took the Bengals on the money line at -115 when this opened at Cincy 1. It is now sitting Cincy 2. 43.5 to 43.5 is your total. Adam, this one's very easy for me. Who in the hell are the Saints going to throw the ball to? And that is basically the handicap in this game. It looks like they could be without wide receiver 1, 2, and 3 in this game. We don't know the Olave situation. And here's the thing. Steven talked about it whenever we were talking about just the previous game here in the Vikings and Dolphins, is with this new concussion protocol, we don't know how easy it's going to be to clear. Like, we don't know what they're going to let people do and not do and all the different things like that and whatnot. We know for sure it looks like Michael Thomas and Jarvis Landry are not going to be able to go. So certainly 2 of the top 3 wide receivers not going to be out there. And now Jameis Winston is practicing in a limited fashion. I think it's an upgrade for my bet if Jameis plays with a broken back, so we'll see how that all plays out as well. But look, Marshawn Lattimore, highly questionable to play in this game, and even if he does, we know corners that are injured typically either get re-injured in the game or just are very, very ineffective. And now the Bengals trot out, the best trio of wide receivers, though T. Higgins is questionable for them, but Tyler Boyd and Jamar Chase could certainly get it done. Hayden Hurst at tight end. I think there's just a mismatch here. The Saints don't get any pressure either. For whatever reason, they've not been able to pressure the quarterback so far this season. And that is the real big key here for me outside of the injury report, is that we know Joe Burrow and this offensive line has not gelled yet. They've not figured things out. But fortunately, they should get time here because the Saints have not figured out how to get pressure on the quarterback so far this year. So anyway, it was a fairly straightforward bet for me, and I actually really do like this one.
So, Matt, this is one of the strangest games, not just this season, but in NFL history. I have been informed that the New Orleans Saints are not required to beat the Cincinnati Bengals this week, because the Cincinnati Bengals have declared that they're going to beat themselves once again. Zach Taylor has decided that he doesn't need to worry about whether Joe Burrow gets pressured. He's just going to keep running the ball. The Cincinnati Bengals are a team I cannot trust. And right now, I look at this game and think to myself, this has the makings of like 14-11 on the board, and I decided that I don't see how Cincinnati is going to beat anybody by more than a score. So the other half of my teaser with Jacksonville is actually New Orleans plus 8.5. Now, that doesn't say that I think New Orleans is going to A, play great, B, win outright. It says that I don't trust Cincinnati to run the score up on anyone right now. We like to talk about the advanced numbers a lot on our podcast. Right now, early down EPA for Cincinnati, 31st in the league. We don't have to get too complicated, though. We can use basic metrics like yards per play, 31st in the league, yards per rush, 30th in the league. And if you heard Joe Burrow talk after the loss to Baltimore, he said, we're not getting the looks to get the big plays anymore, right? And how did they win last year? They won with explosive plays. They won being able to throw the ball up to Jamar Chase when they really needed to. So it seems to me that Cincinnati, at least mentally, is in a little bit of the space that Patrick Mahomes and Kansas City were last year, where they're having to adjust to the fact that they can't go over the top. The problem is they're adjusting with Zach Taylor as opposed to adjusting with Andy Reid. Zach Taylor is fortunate that this team got its way to a Super Bowl, because what we've seen from him is basically a resume that would get a lot of coaches fired. He just has too much talent around him and too much variance. It's gone his way for it to happen. I have New Orleans plus 8.5 in the tees.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. I mean, listen, the thing that really just kind of changed it for me, Steve, is just like, the one thing that has shown up every single week so far this year is been Cincinnati's defense, and they've played really stout. I don't know without any playmakers. And again, Olave very well might play. We keep talking about this. We have no idea we don't know what this concussion protocol looks like and what it's going to take to clear and get to play and all that. But I mean, at the very least, looks like they're going to be without 2 of the 3 wide receivers, could be without all 3. And I just don't know how the Saints score the ball in this thing. But Adam, you're exactly right. I mean, they are doing to Joe Burrow this year exactly what they did at the beginning of the year. Well, no, they did it all year to Patrick Mahomes. It's just Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes figured it out last year how to beat it. Can Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor figure out how to beat it? You're right. That is that's the real bugaboo in all of this. Steven, what are you looking at in this game?
No bet for me in this one, but to drive your point home, Joe Burrow was number 1 in completion percentage over expectation last year. He's currently 18th. He's struggling with these 2 deep zones and being patient to put together long drives. On top of that, you mentioned the Saints wide receiver injuries. T. Higgins with that ankle is now back-to-back DNP as well. And with him not on the field, it's allowing defenses to provide more help on Jamar Chase. Let's not forget that Joe Burrow has targeted T. Higgins just as much as he has targeted Jamar Chase, even though Chase is the one that gets all the headlines and the accolades. So they started to get some chunk plays versus the run against Baltimore if you watched that game last week, but New Orleans is number 1 in the league in rush EPA. So tough matchup for this Bengals offense. As much as I really want to try and keep the faith with them, like, this is not an easy matchup going to New Orleans here, despite the Saints not having their wide receivers. And if Olave plays, slam dunk teaser for me with Adam. Eli Hershkovich on the Beat the Closing Line podcast, and also in his column, likes the Saints this week to cover. He's nervous about the Bengals rush defense. He thinks the numbers are better than what they actually are, considering they haven't played a lot of good rushing offenses, and evidenced by one of the bottom 10 rushing defenses last week against the Ravens. And New Orleans is even better statistically running the ball than the Ravens are with Lamar Jackson. So I think a lot of concerns here to just automatically bet the Bengals to cover this on the road.
This will be interesting. I just have a different view of the offensive standpoint from the Saints, basically more than anything else, right? I just don't know how they score the ball. I mean, look, they looked fine last week against the worst defense that maybe we've ever seen fielded on an NFL team in the Seahawks. So, different animal coming to town this week. Ravens and the Giants right now, 5.5 to 6 in favor of the Ravens on the road at the Giants. We are sitting 45.5. Adam, I'll start with you since it is your team, the New York Football Giants. And listen, you and I on Sundays, we'll text back and forth a little bit here and there. And I'll tell you this, we were very excited about Brian Daboll. And I can't say for sure, it's a 5-game sample size, that he is the reason for the turnaround here, that he is the sole reason. Listen, you do have a healthy Saquon Barkley. That is playing a role here. All you running backs don't matter people out there. I think that is true for 95% of running backs on the face of the planet. Saquon Barkley's different, and when he's at 100%, he is completely different and definitely is a game changer. And so, that being said, I don't have this in the account. I didn't think it was going to get to 6, but now that the 6s are starting to show up here in favor of the Ravens, it's gotten to that key number where I might come back in on the Giants. And I understand we're worried about the wide receiver situation for the Giants. I was worried about the wide receiver situation for the Giants last week whenever they were able to get it done and score the upset. And then I was worried about Daniel Jones' ankle last week as well when he ran 10 times. He had 10 damn rushing attempts in the game. So I don't know what I'm worried about, So I'm not.
NFL players get the best drugs, man.
Yeah,
never forget, NFL players get the best drugs.
I'm not in love with this Ravens offense by any stretch, and so you're going to give me a semi-key number of 6, and I think it's pretty tempting.
In the time you've known me, Matt, have you ever gotten a text from me celebrating a Giants win?
I have not.
Until this past Sunday.
Yeah,
because I'm watching this game, and as soon as they get down 10 at halftime, I'm thinking, all right, you know what? They gave it a good first half. Like, I'm just happy to see progress out of my team. I'm just happy to see the Giants moving in the right direction. And then all of a sudden, things start to happen where they're creeping back into this game. And then it gets to 2020, and the ball is getting punted back to them. And guys, I swear to you on a stack of Bibles, I said to myself, they're going to win this effing game. And I can't remember the last time I felt that way about a Giants team. And now let's talk from a numbers perspective. You mentioned the 10 rushes for Daniel Jones. He has the option to do so, right? Brian Daboll is scheming some things in that give the Giants more chances to win. And that's all I've been asking as a Giants fan. Do some things that give your team advantages. Daniel Jones might not be a great quarterback, might even not be a good quarterback, but Brian Daboll's putting him in the right spots. He was without his top 4 receivers last week against the Packers. and they won the game. So when you talk about running backs don't matter, okay, so you get into the red zone and you need a touchdown. Well, if you give Saquon Barkley a wildcat option where he's going to be able to go literally anywhere in the offense, as opposed to turn around, hand the ball off 3 yards in a cloud of dust up the middle, yeah, it does start to matter because you're getting your best player in space. So those are the sorts of things that Brian Daboll is doing to help. Now, when it comes to this week against the Baltimore Ravens, I'm going to pass on this game. Baltimore is second in weighted DVOA. They are second in offensive DVOA. For some reason, as elite as Baltimore has been by all the metrics, things have not played out the way that they should for them. They've blown the 2-3 score leads, et cetera, et cetera. I think at some point you start to see Baltimore as the team that we expect them to be, or at least that I expect them to be. And I don't want to get in a spot against the Giants team that I love that they're 4-1. I love that they're playing better. It's still a little sketchy to me. They're still way down in DVOA, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to take those points against what I think is an elite team in Baltimore and find out that this is the week that it comes back to earth a little bit. So, hey, I hope you're right, Matt. I hope the Giants make this a competitive, fun game.
So doesn't look like Rondell. I mean, it does not look like that we're going to have to worry about Leonard Williams being out this week either. He looks like he's trending in the right direction. You look at this, that guy is a difference maker on the defensive line for the New York Football Giants as well. Now, the problem is we keep waiting. When the hell are they going to get a wide receiver back out there? Well, Wan'Dale Robinson is at least practicing limited. You know, Kadarius Toney didn't go, but at least he is practicing limited, so maybe he could get back out there. Steven, this is a fairly interesting game because it is kind of what do we believe about what we've seen from both of these teams, right? I mean, like, what is real and what's fake with the Giants and the Ravens?
It's not as extreme as the rushing offenses in the Browns-Patriots game versus those rushing defenses, but it certainly seems like both rushing offenses have an advantage statistically in this game versus the opposing defense. But, I mean, Brian Daboll is God as far as I'm concerned. Like, I love this guy as a coordinator in Buffalo. I thought he was amazing. I thought he was the #1 head coach candidate coming into this year, and we thought it was all lining up with the easiest schedule in the league by opponent win total. This guy is incredible. Lamar Jackson is 8th in the league in completion percentage over expectation. Daniel Jones is 7th, throwing to Darius Slayton fresh out of the witness protection program, man. Like, he's got nobody to throw to, and he's got a better CPOE than Lamar. So no bet for me in this one. I think this number is getting a little too high. I do want to ask Adam, like sometimes we ask him real news, fake news on trends type stuff. And most of these trends are absolute garbage, but I'm curious what you think of this one with teams coming back from London the week before and opting not to take the bye week. I think it's at least 5, maybe a few more that we've seen that do this now. And their opponent the next week, like, is going over the win total like crazy. I'm sorry, not over the win total, going over their team total like crazy. So the defenses struggle coming back from London the next week. Real news or fake news?
I'm going to call it no news. I'm going to go right in between because I think what we've seen is that if you're going to take a trend with something like London, you have to understand that teams have gotten better about how they do this trip. And you just have to go back to last week to see.
And it used to be the Jags that win every year, and they were absolute garbage. No, seriously though, and they were absolute garbage, right? I mean,
but those Jags teams took a bye the following week. So there's been more teams going, and there's been more London games, and there's been teams not taking a bye after the London game.
This is a knife, and Steven brought up a trend. Let me just stab myself with this. Sorry,
Adam.
Was it a bagel for breakfast? Why do you have a knife right there? That seems really convenient that you just had a knife ready to go for the podcast. But okay, look at last week, right? New Orleans didn't suffer coming back off the bye. Minnesota won, even though they didn't cover. Coming back off the bye, I think teams have gotten smarter about this. And yes, as Matt said, if you're not sending the Jaguars, then you are giving yourself a much better chance to see the team perform better coming back.
I agree. And my conclusion after hearing all that is Daboll is God, and I'm not laying 6 points on the road against Daboll.
Yeah, I'm telling you, Giants will be a contest play for me for sure. I don't know if it'll be a real bet or not when it's all said and done. Bucks at the Steelers, 8.5 in favor of the Bucks. 45.5 is your total. Guys, here's my handicap. I played the Bucks in a teaser because if they can't beat the Steelers by a field goal, then I'm going to quit betting, basically. I mean, like, are you serious? Like, teaser, if I can't cover this friggin' teaser leg.
Seriously, man.
This was the one I was talking about that I paired up with Jacksonville. Look, this Steelers team is god awful. They're meant to be god awful this year. Now that they've made the switch to Kenny Pickett, they know exactly what's going on. They know exactly what they got in making the switch here, and it is a losing season upcoming, and maybe they can increase this team's, some draft capital by moving Chase Claypool or whatever it is in the offseason, or maybe before this season's over with, and trying to actually build around Kenny Pickett if that's what you're going to do. But look, this team's bad. They're bad. We used to think, we had this thought in our minds of the Steelers defense, and the Steelers defense is so tough. No, this defense is middle of the road. It's definitely not that tough at all. And Tom Brady and the Bucs are getting healthier. So for me, pretty simple deal. If they can't win by a field goal, then, F me. What do you say, Steven?
Yep. I'm never betting teasers again if the Bucs lose this game. As simple as that. And on top of that, the injuries got even worse for Pittsburgh. They had injuries to Ogunjobi and a couple of their corners in that blowout loss to Buffalo. So, if the Bucs can't win this game, then I just quit, man. I'm with you on that. I can go into a long spiel about the metrics of the Bucs offense against the metrics of the Pittsburgh defense. Just know that the Bucs are really good and the Pittsburgh's really friggin' bad, and they got a rookie quarterback and they can't block in the running game. That's enough said.
Yes. Adam, Bucs, good pass defense. You look at the Steelers, bad pass offense. They can't run the ball. Like, what am I mean, like, how do the Bucs not win this thing by a field goal?
I might hate myself by the time we get to Sunday afternoon, but I can't do it.
Ooh,
I can't do it with Tampa.
Oh man!
Now
I'm scared.
Now, guys, I was the guy who bet Tampa each of the first 3 weeks, and even with their improving health situation, something's not right, and I can't figure out exactly what it is, but something just isn't right. And last week, if Tom Brady isn't Tom Brady and doesn't have the referees out there protecting him, they lose that game. Don't cover. They lose outright to Atlanta. Atlanta was going to go and score. Atlanta had that game in pocket in the second half. And that's what worries me. Why aren't the Bucs, even when they have a chance to put a team away, putting a team away? And so that's what worries me right now. Look, should they win this game by a field goal? Yes, I make this game Tampa 8. Of course they should win this game by a field goal. But why are things not going Tampa's way right now? Something doesn't feel right, and I know that numbers and feel don't really get along very well together, but they are enough for me to say, hey, if something doesn't feel right, I'm not betting it, and so I'll pass.
Hey, they got to book all the games. We don't got to bet them all. So I completely understand that.
I got it ready, guys.
It's
not going to end well. It's not going to end well. Clown mask is on.
Though Steven does want to try to bet the board every week. We do not. We don't, in fact, have to do that. Carolina Panthers at the Los Angeles Rams. Guys, this is 10 in favor of the Rams, 41.5 total. Yes, I mean, you could take 10 with a team in a 41.5 total. I mean, and at the same time, I can't do it. Adam, in years past, people would say, you bet the team that fired the coach and, whatever, and they're going to rally around, Yeah, but, now this team is traveling all the way across country. And now this team's traveling away all the way across country to start PJ Walker at quarterback. I mean, like, there's just so much here. Like, this was the first game I scratched off. I have absolutely no opinion. I know traditional thinking is you should take the points. If you're getting double digits at a 41.5 total, I know that's traditional thinking. I can't get there. I have the Panthers 31st in my power rating. So, like, they're literally the second worst team in the entire NFL. I know the Rams haven't done anything to inspire hope from us, but just a complete utter stay away for me in this thing.
I have to do that too. Unfortunately, I would just love the opportunity to get 10 points against the Los Angeles Rams right now, because I can't move them all the way down, but man, do I want to move the Rams farther down in my power ratings than I have. Matthew Stafford by PFF right now is a bottom 5 quarterback in the NFL. And that's partially because of the line. We know that. But he also just has not looked good. He has no one to throw to other than Cooper Kupp. On the other side, PJ Walker is someone who could not beat out either Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield to be even the number 2 quarterback for this team in camp. So pass.
Steven, I can't believe this. I'm looking at your bets you have in for the week. You didn't bet this game. Thank God. All right. Yeah. So, little clap here. Yeah. You didn't bet this one. But do give us your quick thoughts though.
I'm learning, guys. I'm learning. Did you see, Matt, who Eli's guest was on the Thursday edition of Beat the Closing Line this week?
I did not.
Our fearless former co-host, Brad Allen.
Okay.
Who does like the Carolina Panthers this week. So if you want a reason to go bet the Panthers, you can go listen to that show. I'm out. No, thank you. Yeah. Don't like Mo Noir described PJ Walker as a player. It shouldn't even be in the NFL. And I am looking for ways to buy low on the Rams because I think the O-line got exposed by 3 of the elite pass rushers in the NFL. But laying 10 points is like is never buying low. That is not buying low on the Rams. So we're going to have to wait another week.
I'm with you. Arizona Cardinals and the Seattle Seahawks. This is a fairly interesting game from a standpoint that I have heard a lot of smart people on both sides of this game. So Cardinals sitting 2.5, 50.5 is your total. Steven, look, some people are saying you could tease the Seahawks. I don't know in a game with a 50.5 total if that's something I'm really looking to do. And I also think there's a pretty high variance factor in this game. So I don't like to tease those type of games where I think there's a really high, variance that's going on. You actually do have a bet in your account, though. You did get the full 3 on the Seahawks.
I did, yeah. That's gone. In fact, we're moving closer off of the 2.5 towards 2 for Seattle after some early week money with lower limits on Arizona. This is the time of the week where the opinions that get bet matter more than the beginning of the week with higher limits. So it appears that there's more sharp money on Seattle in this game. This is the other team that I also paired in a money line underdog parlay with Jacksonville here. In fact, I took alt spreads -2.5 on both of them to get a +500 parlay on Seattle and Jacksonville. One of our new writers, Jeffrey Schreiber, notes it pretty well in his mismatch column this week on thelines.com. Seattle, believe it or not, has the number 1 passing offense DVOA. They have the number 1 passing offense by PFF. They are top 5 in offensive EPA, yards per play, yards per pass, third down offense. Arizona is the worst defense in the NFL by Pro Football Focus. They are bottom 10 in defense EPA. This is not the week where Geno Smith comes back to earth and starts playing like the quarterback we saw against the San Francisco 49ers. And I think we've seen enough weeks now with Geno Smith, who, by the way, is top 5 among quarterbacks in EPA and success rate, number 1 still in completion percentage over expectation. I think we've seen more games than not where he is functional, and credit to Pete Carroll for letting Geno cook more than he ever did Russell Wilson. It's working. Their defense is absolute garbage. They can't stop anybody, but they can score points. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I trust Geno Smith with Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf at this point more than I trust Kyler Murray and Cliff Kingsbury and with what they're trotting out there. So, I don't know, man. I think this Arizona this Arizona offense is not very good. I think their defense is just as bad as Seattle's. And this team is laughable, man. I mean, they're in a field goal game last week with a chance to beat one of the best teams in the NFL, but they're too stupid to go actually find a good kicker and decide to sign Matt Amendola, who's missed a fair share of kicks with both the Chiefs this year and when he was with the Jets. They just keep making dumb decision after dumb decision, not only on the game, but also with the roster. I don't want any part of this Arizona team, and I'm actually adjusting my previous preseason opinions on Seattle to think this is a very good, competent offense against other below-average teams in the NFL.
I think they'll be all right against bad defenses. I don't think they're going to be great against competent defenses. The question is do we think that Arizona is a competent defense? I can't really get there on that. I have a lean actually on the other side. Adam, I think you and I are simpatico in this, where I actually have a lean more towards the Arizona side here. I mean, listen, Seattle's going to beat up on bad, on bad teams. They're not going to beat up on competent teams. I don't know if we know whether Arizona's a competent team or not. So that's kind of why I haven't pulled the trigger yet on this thing. But and it's not credit Pete Carroll, by the way. It's credit Seattle's defense, because Seattle's defense is so bad that he's not allowed to run the ball all the time. He has to play this style of offense if he has any chance whatsoever of winning games. Because if you play the way he really wants to play and you limit possessions and you take some of the variance out of the game, they're never going to win. They have to play these shootout games. They have to play high variance games, because that's the only way they're ever going to come out on top whenever they're fielding this defensive unit that they're putting out there. So look, it is the worst, Adam, as we all look at the same stuff. It is a bottom 5 in nearly every single statistical category you can look at from every single outlet out there. And so, for me, it's a big step up also in competition. Now, I don't care what people think their long-term view of Kyler Murray. And if you want to tell me that you think Kyler Murray isn't as good as people think, or isn't, didn't deserve the money he got, whatever, I don't really care. I'm not really going to argue with that. But let's go to the last 3 games here for Seattle. I mean, they played Andy Dalton, Marcus Mariota, and Jared Goff, right? And I mean, in week 1, they got Russell Wilson in whatever version of Russell Wilson that he's actually in right now. And then in week 2, by the way, that was the, Lance gets hurt, and then Jimmy Garoppolo comes in game. So, I mean, like this team is one of the worst defenses we've ever seen, going up against that slate of quarterbacks. And if you don't think Kyler Murray is a step up, no matter what your long-term view is of him, I think you're sort of mistaken. So that's kind of why I actually do lean towards the Cardinals here.
In the last 4 weeks, the Arizona Cardinals are 3-1 against the spread. And in the game they did not cover, they were live to cover till about 5 minutes left against the Los Angeles Rams. I know the Cardinals look bad to everyone because Cliff Kingsbury helps to make them look bad with horrible decisions, which is why I'm only a lean on Arizona right now versus playing Arizona. I think the Arizona Cardinals could be better. And if you want to say this game has variance, Matt, variance's name is Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is the variance. Kyler Murray could go out there and go nuclear at any given time. And that Seahawks defense could be exactly how he goes nuclear at any given time. And so I don't know that I agree with Steven in the fact that Arizona's defense is as bad as Seattle's. I think they're bad. I don't think they're as bad as Seattle. I won't play a teaser for exactly what you just said, Matt. This does not fit the teaser formula for me because of the total in this game. And respect the market, right? This game opened 47, has been bet up to 51. So that's just how bad everybody thinks these defenses both are. And the one thing I'd say about that passing offense, I'm not going to drag Geno Smith. I am going to say that Tyler Lockett popped up on the injury report with a soft tissue injury here late in the week. And so I don't know that they have a lot of room to take weapons out of this offense and still be as good as they've looked so far. So I'm lean Arizona, haven't played it yet. And thank you, Cliff Kingsbury, for at least making me pause.
Matt, along those lines, if you do want to back Arizona, I wonder if waiting for like the second quarter might be the way for you guys to do it to get an even better number, because Arizona, and this kind of fits with the Cliff Kingsbury isn't sharp narrative, the Arizona offense is dead last in first quarter EPA and 31st in first quarter success rate.
Yeah. The cure for that is the Seattle Seahawks defense. So I'm not going to be waiting on anything. If I'm going to play it, I'm going to play it at under the field goal, and we're going to get it going. Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs, the game everybody's going to watch this week, the game everyone's going to be talking about. It is in a small afternoon window, so fortunate for all of us right now. But Bills are 2.5-point road favorites over the Chiefs. 54 is your total. So, Adam, I think you and I are on no, okay, so it's me and Steven that are on different sides here. I bet the Bills as soon as this thing hit at 2 before the Chiefs played on Monday night. It didn't really adjust all that much, a half point, so I didn't like really beat any sort of anything, but I have the Bills at 2. This to me is a pretty straightforward handicap in which, yes, these are two of the 3-5 best teams in all the NFL. But for me, the Bills offense has marched up and down the field all season long. They have not had any sort of resistance, hot knife through butter all season long. We have seen the Chiefs offense sputter at times. Now, have they figured out ways to right the ship? Have they figured out ways to get it done? Last week in particular would be another reason to say that. Yes. Bills defense is a different animal. The Bills scheme is a different scheme. This is a very, very, very good team top to bottom all around here. The reason I'm going Bills in this is pretty simple. This Bills offense most likely is not going to get stopped very often. And I cannot say the same thing for the Chiefs. I think that there is a path to this game going under this 54 total that it is ballooned up to, because I think there's a path for the Bills defense to actually give this Chiefs offense a lot of trouble in this thing. And so I think the Bills are the better team. I think the Bills are the better team even on the road. I'm not upset that I didn't really beat the line here, beat the number or anything. I'm happy with my Bills -2. What say you?
Again, this is another game for me where just because your numbers say it doesn't mean you have to bet it. Mm-hmm. I make this game a pick. So when I see that there are 2.5 points available to me on the board, I say, well, maybe Kansas City. And if you believe that the game's going to go under, then you would at least entertain the idea of the teaser, although it's the same as the last game we just talked about. The numbers are far too high to get involved in that. Have the efficiency metrics always led to points for Buffalo this year? That's part of what worries me in this game, because you look at a game like Baltimore, a defense that got carved up left and right, and you see a Buffalo team that struggled to get to 23 points. So could Kansas City conceivably play a similar game against Buffalo where Josh Allen marches up and down the field and yet it doesn't lead to points? Yes. On the other side of this, you and I were watching a lot of that Monday Night Football game last week with the Kansas City Chiefs, and they were legitimately behind 17 points. That was not a lot of fluke action that led to them being behind 7. They were legitimately down 17. They need a lot of help from Josh McDaniels to get back into that game. So I'm going to pass. My numbers would say Kansas City, but I respect Buffalo enough, and I respect the handicap you're talking about there enough to stay off it.
Steven, you're on the other side of me here. What gives you Kansas City in the account?
That Patrick, I got Chiefs +3 at -120. I pulled the trigger on it. Really not much more into this than I'm getting Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid at home at a key number, and the most key number of all. We can get into numbers all we want. These two offenses are elite and in their own tier. I think if you look at drop back EPA, the gap between the Chiefs, who are number 2, and the number 3 team, the Eagles, is the same as the gap between the number 3 team and the number 18 team, the Green Bay Packers. And the Bills are even higher than the Chiefs. So like these two quarterbacks are in their own tier. It's going to be amazing offensive football. It should be again this one. I do share the red zone concerns. The Chiefs are 3rd in the NFL in red zone touchdown conversion. The Bills are only 20th, converting only 56% of their red zone trips into touchdowns. So that in a game like this, that could hurt them. We'll see. But we also know that red zone offense is pretty volatile and can flip in any given week. So not much more for me to handicap here other than just taking what I think is the best quarterback and head coach combination in the NFL and getting them as an underdog at 3 at a juiced -120.
I'll tell you this though, must watch television. Like as excited,
wait.
Yes, as excited for a game that I've been in quite a long time in the regular season. And let's wrap things up here, guys, with Sunday Night Football. We have the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys are 6.5-point dogs on the road at the Eagles. 42.5 is your total. So I'm on the opposite side of you two, but in a different way, because when this thing dipped to 4.5, I played the Eagles because I'm like, this has moved too much. This is way too big of an overreaction here to what we've seen from the Cowboys of late. Now we get positive news on the offensive line from the Eagles, and this thing goes through the key-ish number of 6 to 6.5, to which you guys pulled the trigger at 6.5. So we actually have, in my opinion, even though we're on different sides, we kind of have two different bets in our account here, right? Like the 4.5 and then the 6.5 are different bets in a way. So Adam, give me your reasoning for the Cowboys here.
So Matt, you talked earlier about tracking your bets and the value of seeing what's worked and what hasn't. So I looked at my last 5 weeks and I sat down, especially and looked at week 4 and week 5, and I saw lean Dallas -3 against Washington. Didn't play it, covered. I saw lean Dallas +5.5 against Rams. Didn't play it. They cover. Now, I'm not about to tell you that the Philadelphia Eagles are the same animal as the Rams or the Washington Commanders. However, I look at my numbers. I see Philly -3.5. I see Dallas getting 6.5. And I say to myself, I should be in on this week. And that's someone, me, who is way off market on Dallas. I don't like Dallas. I don't believe that this is really a great team. I cannot fundamentally base my handicap of a team on its defense because defense varies too much and the offense hasn't been great. That being said, who has Philadelphia blown off the field other than the Vikings, right? The Eagles are a team that once they get out to a big lead, they shut the game down. This is a team that plays top 5 situation neutral pace all throughout the game. But when they have a lead in the second half pace, they are in the bottom 3 of the league. They will let teams hang around in a game. And I think Dallas is the kind of team that has shown you it absolutely has the ability to hang around, especially now that they've found a little bit of rhythm with this rushing offense. So look, I respect Philadelphia. I have moved Philadelphia up in my power ratings every single week. I admit the fact that I was too low on Philly to start the year. And even despite the fact that I have Philly in the top 5 and I'm lower on the market than Dallas, I still think this number is too big. So I haven't pulled the trigger to go back to what you said a moment ago. I'm a hard lean on Dallas +6.5, and I probably will end up there because Dallas being Dallas in an island game, you're probably going to have to get that 6.5 before you get to Sunday night. It'll probably get taken.
I'm glad you brought up because so Stephen and I on opposite sides of this, we kind of debated it a little bit, just typing back and forth. But I mean, more than anything, to me, it's a one-dimensional football team in that one dimension is the defense. And now you're bringing in one of the most efficient offenses and one of the most dynamic offenses that they've seen all year. You know what you didn't get in any of their opponents so far is the full breadth of a quarterback that is mobile, a quarterback that has been accurate, and weapons on the outside as far as wide receivers as well. You could look their loss in week 1 where they got just comprehensively destroyed by the Bucs. Then Cincinnati, they only win by 3 in that one, in which again we know offensive line is just absolutely atrocious. In that, we know that's not the case for Philadelphia. A win against the Giants, the Commanders, and Rams. This is just a massive step up in competition for this Dallas team, whose offense, by the way, has been garbage. It doesn't really matter what people want to say about these wins and stuff. These wins have been defensively generated and have had absolutely nothing to do with the offense whatsoever. And this offense is going to continue to struggle against an elite Philadelphia defense. And this is such a massive step up in competition on the defensive side for Dallas going up against this Eagles offense. I think people are really underrating how big a step up this is. That is now Steven's chance to come in and try and say that he likes the Dallas Cowboys in this.
I did, but Matt, I like how you started the show saying we're a fully transparent show, and I'm going to come right now and say that I bet this early in the week. I liked it at 4.5, and that's when I thought the Eagles' offensive line was going to be banged up. It's clearly not going to be banged up. Their starters look like they're going to play in this game. And the market moved heavily against my opinion. And there are a lot of sports betting shows that'll still dig their heels in and say that, I don't care. My opinion's right. The people that are shelling out max bets later in the week to move a number 2 points in the NFL, their opinions matter a lot more than mine. And I was wrong about that Dallas line earlier in the week at +4.5, and we're at 6.5 now, and that's a different conversation. But I just want to say I was wrong about that bet earlier in the week in my handicap of it.
And I just want to bring something up in talking about the 2-point move. The only part of that move that really gets my attention is 6 to 6.5, because now we clear the 6, right? The 4.5, 5, 5.5, those are dead number moves. It doesn't really worry me as much. But yeah, it does get my attention when it clears 6.
Now, Matt, with that being said, I do still have some concerns, but I just wanted to preface that first, that clearly the market has a very different opinion of what I had. Now, my concerns here are that Jalen Hurts has the number 7 pass block win rate offensive line, but he's had the 3rd most pressured throws in the NFL. So he has been holding the ball a bit too long. And he also is, when pressured, 33% completion percentage under pressure, which is only 24th among quarterbacks. And he is facing a Dallas defense that is number 1 in pass rush win rate. They are top 5 in EPA and success rate overall as a defense, top 10 against the pass in those metrics, top 3 against the run. But Micah Parsons is banged up. We made that bet last week against the Rams, not knowing that he was only going to play limited snaps. He's got a groin issue. We're not sure how he did have a couple of sacks, so he's able to play through it. But that offensive line of the Rams is in a completely, like, the Eagles are in a different stratosphere when it comes to their offensive line with what the Rams have. So, but I see what Adam sees, that they kind of turn off the gas in the second half. This Eagles offense, 23rd in second half EPA, 27th in drop back EPA, 26th in success rate. But at this point, I'm really nervous about making a bet where I feel like the back door is more likely than having the right side here.
Guys, as always, everything we do, absolutely free. So please, please, please subscribe, rate, review, do all the stuff. Let us know in the comment section how you are going to be playing the games. We'll be back for our Monday night breakdown as well in a solo video. Really do appreciate you guys. If you want to follow Adam at Adam Candee, 2 E's, no Y, Steven at Steven Andress 1. You want to follow me at Matt Brown M2. Good luck on all your bets here in week 6.